We open on an establishing shot of London. Bird's eye view, smokestacks, grime, and workhouses come into view as we zoom in and down to the 18th century streets of the city. We focus in on a short man, small build, early 20s. A buddy pats his shoulder with a "Jack the Lad" before walking off down the street. Jack Sheppard is a hero of the people. They're starting to draw cartoons of Jack. There are stories about him in the news. He's a lovable rogue, charming, witty, sneaky, deceptively strong, nonviolent. And he was sticking it to the man, defying authority. And he refused to work with our crime boss friend, Mr. Thief-Taker General, Jonathan Wilde, opting instead to partner with a different criminal, Joseph Blueskin Blake. Hello and welcome to Remember, a podcast about histories, mysteries, sometimes letting your co-host talk, and
hello,
criminal nicknames from the 1720s. I won't be outdone by some long-dead scoundrels. Oh, no. So, this is my co-host, Matthew Quickwit Jude. Not to be confused with Nitwit Jude. That is a different guy, just to be clear.
I do have other nicknames, but I'm not allowed to use them here. They're my stage names.
Your screen names, maybe.
They're more of a cabaret name, honestly, but you know.
And I'm Paula the Pie, because I like pie.
You love pie. She does.
I like pie, so I chose that.
Favorite pie? Go.
Apple, pumpkin, pecan. Those are my three favorites.
I'd have gone with like steak and kidney, but that's the cultural divide showing pretty strongly.
I did not for one moment consider a savory pie when you asked me. Not for one moment.
Like you like chicken pot pie, right?
It's not a favorite pie. I like chicken pot pie, but I do not think of it as pie, right? Even though it is. But yeah, I just do not think of it.
Baffling.
Yeah, so this is the second part of our look at Jack Sheppard, Gentleman Jack, Jack the Lad, Honest Jack.
Still not loving that last one. I mean, I like the balls on it, but I don't think it's on it. Honest Jack, that's like calling me Ugly Matthew. Which I have been called.
Well, those people are dumb.
Which Matthew? You know, Ugly Matthew, the one that's... Yeah.
No. So Jonathan Wilde, our self-appointed thief-taker general.
See, I like that nickname. Look, he's the criminal overlord. He's calling himself Thief-Taker General. That's great. Frankly, there's an honesty to that name.
I think there's an absolute opposite of honesty to that name.
He is the Thief-Taker General.
Only the thieves who cross him.
Oh, I suppose that's right, because it doesn't mean I'm the biggest thief. It means I'm the biggest bringer in of thieves,
yes,
right?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because he was making money by telling on people, essentially.
Yes.
Snitch Master General, more likely.
Yeah, Snitch Master General. That's his MC name, actually. He couldn't let Jack go on in open defiance of him. So, he found our girl Bess, Jack's partner in love and crime, and bought her a bunch of drinks until she drunkenly spilled, maybe there's a pun in there, drunkenly spilled the beans.
There is. There's a, yeah, go for it.
It was not intended. I've realized it now as I'm reading it back from my script.
You did great. That's how natural you are to the world of language.
Thank you so much. So she drunkenly spills the beans about where Jack could be found and what he was up to. Jack is arrested. Again, in our previous episode, we talked about his earlier arrests. He's now arrested again, and this time he's sent to Newgate Prison, which is where what you would call the Old Bailey is now.
Yeah.
And then I believe the trial area of the prison was called the Old Bailey then as well, I believe.
Yeah.
But he's sent there, and he goes on trial for 3 crimes. He's acquitted on 2 of them for lack of evidence. But Wilde, like you were saying before, made sure there was a witness testifying for the 3rd crime.
Regardless of whether they'd seen anything or not.
Regardless of how accurate this testimony may or may not have been. And it was through that testimony that Jack was convicted. The record for this trial states that the crime was, quote, plainly proved. Got that quote from a Wikipedia page, so take it with a grain of salt, but...
Wow, and it's whirring with all the information one would expect.
And for this, Jack was sentenced to death.
Death?
Yeah, because remember we talked last episode about there's like a crime wave happening in London right now, or at least fear of a crime wave because there's no centralized police force. So deterrence is what they are doing. And they're saying this, the smallest crime, the crimes that are easiest to commit, personal property theft, are the ones with the harshest punishments because they feel like that's the only way to try and stop people from doing it.
Well, you should steal the crown jewels then or something, Kill a pope. Then you're going to get off with it.
Yeah, like they're not gonna hang you just for killing somebody because so few people actually have the nerve to do that.
Exactly. This, if anything, incentivizes me to do bigger crimes. Look, we're going to get death if I steal a bag of chips. I'll get you, what do you want? You want a doner kebab barbecue sauce? And what are you having? One of them weird sausages? Yeah, okay. Death for that. So let's do something that's...
Let's have a heist. Let's rob a casino.
Because that's a more risky crime and we get 10 years. Might as well try rob it,
In his last few days, visitors came to see him, including Bess and one of her friends, Paul Maggot. Paul Maggot? Okay, you're British. How would you say this name? P-O-L-L.
Paul?
Kind of like Polly, maybe? Paul? Polly? Paul?
Yeah, maybe it's short for Polly.
But also Maggot. I don't really understand the nicknames, honestly.
I went out with a Polly once. Her last name was not Maggot.
That's good. So there's a barred window in Jack's cell through which he was allowed to talk to visitors.
So you're going to say, just to God.
Just to God. On August 31st, about 2 weeks after Jack's conviction, the order came down that he would be hanged in 4 days on September 4th. On this same day that the conviction came down, Bess and Paul were visiting and spent time chatting with some of the guards. The women spotted another lady friend of theirs, presumably visiting another prisoner there, bid adieu to the guards, and the 3 women walked out of the jail.
I have a guess.
Yeah?
One of them women is Jack. Now, is that what's happened here?
That is exactly what happened here.
He's out with the clink. He's gone.
So while the guards were distracted talking to Bess and Paul, he removed a bar from that visitor's window, squeezed through it, because remember, he's slight build, squeezed through the opening, put on a dress that had been smuggled in for him, and simply walked right out of the jail.
So they were like, yeah, they're just leaving. It's like, wait, were there 3 people who entered the prison? No, oh, well.
They're like, wait, what? Wait, why is this? What? Oh, no.
That's great. Love it.
So did London. They're going wild for Jack. They love this guy. No jail cell can hold him. He's humiliating those in power, and boy, do they deserve it. Those dicks. He gets the heck out of Dodge. But a few days later, he returns to London, and within about a week, he's captured again and arrested and sent back to Newgate Prison.
Move to Edinburgh. For the love of God, move somewhere else. Go to Liverpool or Manchester. Why go back to London? It doesn't make any... That's not smart.
You're going to see this a couple times. Spoilers. I don't know why he constantly returns to London other than maybe the idea that it's the only place he's ever lived. I don't know. I don't know why he constantly returns to London. But he does, and he gets caught again. But Jack didn't plan to stay in that prison. And now his reputation precedes him. So he was getting a lot of visitors. And guards kept finding tools in his cell, like files.
Because everyone wants him to escape, right?
I was going to say, yeah, I like to imagine that strangers were smuggling these things into him unrequested because they were so invested in him.
Right. I'm here to see Jack. Which cell? Oh, just down there. All right. Thank you very much, Governor. He's a threepence for your time. Oh, Jack, you don't know me, but I've heard of you. In my coat is what's known as a small ballistic cannon. Now, here's the plan. You get into the cannon And he's like, I just don't think that throwing me into a cannon, have you got like, could you just leave the door open on your way out? It's like, oh, yeah, fair enough. Actually, that's a solid plan as well.
Exactly. It just, I don't know, it reminds me of that kind of energy that like mob energy that leads to the internet banding together to name a vessel Bodie McBoatface, right? Like everyone's just like, yeah.
That was the British as well, if I remember correctly.
So however Jack gets these items, however Jack ends up inside of that cannon, the guards were more wary this time around, and they keep finding him inside of a cannon, right? They keep being like, I don't remember that cannon being in there before. So in response, they transfer him to a high security cell where they put him in leg irons and then chained those leg irons to the floor. And then the guards said to him, okay, Matthew, do you want to be the guards in this exchange or do you want to be Jack?
I'll be the guards.
I have a line for you to read.
It'll be in the same accent as the previous character, but...
It's very Peaky Blinders. The guards say to Jack,
Oi, Jack, you're chained to the floor. What do you think of that?
To which Jack says, oh, jolly good jape, old chaps, but look, I can use this nail to pick the lock and get quite free. So I've obviously made up this dialogue that we performed, I think, brilliantly.
I think it was quite good, possibly the best content we've ever produced,
I think
frankly.
so. But the story goes that Jack did show the guards how easily he could get himself out of these chains. He was like, yeah, I can just pick these locks with this nail.
Why didn't he just become a performer? Stop. I mean, Houdini's big at the time, right? That's about the same era.
I think Houdini's a bit later than this.
Whatever.
Houdini, I think, might be like 100 years later because he's more Victorian, and this is like Revolutionary War, pre-Revolutionary War. This is like King George era.
What year is this set?
This is early 1700s.
To me, everything that ever happened in London happened in the Industrial Revolution, frankly.
We are pre-Jack the Ripper by a few years here. So after being like shown up by Jack, just picking the locks here, they handcuff him to keep him from being able to have the mobility to pick the locks. So Jack's been sitting in this jail cell, chained to the floor with leg irons, handcuffed, for just over a month when his former partner, Blue Skin Blake, gets arrested.
Oh, Bluey.
All Bluey. Different from the children's...
No, I believe it's the same. I believe it's the same Bluey. I believe that's the case.
Oh, you think that Bluey was inspired by this Bluey?
I believe they're one and the same, yes.
That is why I have been noticing a lot more young children carrying around like switchblades.
Look, that is actually the case in London at the moment. That is actually the truth of it. So, yeah, that's incredibly correct.
It also makes sense because isn't Bluey Australian? So Blueskin Blake shipped to Australia as a criminal,
It's the same. Yeah, it's exactly. You're making a lot of the connections that are making this seem like a valid course of dialogue that we're having right now, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm here to yes and you. So Blueskin Blake is standing trial for robbery next door to Newgate Prison, this old Bailey.
Crikey, I didn't do it.
And of course, Jonathan Wilde is there giving evidence against Blueskin. And perhaps...
Oh, no!
Oh, no! And perhaps not caring so much about how factual his evidence is. And when Blueskin is subsequently convicted, he jumps up, lunges at Wilde with a pocket knife, perhaps not caring so much about how alive Wilde continues to be. He slashes Wilde's throat, and chaos erupts in the court and in the prison next door where Jack is.
I was hoping Wilde isn't making it out of this story alive. Is that the case?
He does survive. He does survive this attack.
On.
But I will tell you, this does mark the beginning of his downfall as a criminal overlord. Jack Sheppard is credited in a lot of sources with being the person who brings down Jonathan Wilde, kind of exposes him for what he is. So, of course, Jack is not going to let this moment pass him by. He is able to get out of those handcuffs that were supposed to be holding him so securely and pick the lock, chaining him to the floor. Still in his leg irons, he goes to the chimney that is in the room where he's being held. And once again, taking advantage of his small stature, he climbs up the chimney like a Cockney reverse Santa Claus, stealing presents and going up chimneys. But since he's not a jolly, magical holiday elf, he gets stopped by an iron bar inside the chimney, which he then removes. But instead of continuing up the chimney, he comes back down with the bar. He uses it to break through the wooden ceiling of his cell. He climbs up into the room above him, which apparently hasn't been used since holding aristocratic Jacobite prisoners 7 years earlier, so it's empty. He then proceeds to break through 6 barred doors and get up to the roof of the prison. At this point, he realizes he's about 60 feet from the ground with leg irons still on him, so he goes back inside, back through those 6 doors, back to the Jacobite room, back down the ceiling to his cell, gets his bedclothes tied to a rope, climbs back up through all the doors to the roof, hasn't been caught, and uses his bedclothes rope to get to the roof next door, which is a residence. He breaks in, walks downstairs, and out to the street without anyone being alerted to his presence.
So he's still in leg irons, though, right?
He's still in leg irons, yes.
He's very persistent. I appreciate that about him. And he seems to be just pretty good at problem solving and just being like, I'm just going to do this. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You know?
He truly, to me, when I think of like lad normally when I think of like lad, I'm not like thinking of it in the most affectionate way, if I'm honest. But when I think of it with Jack, I'm like, what a lad. I don't know. There's something about him. Yeah, he is a scamp. He's a Han Solo, right? Like, he absolutely is I should make a reference that you would understand. I don't have one. But he's a scamp.
He's like a MacGyver kind of character, right?
He does have a bit of a MacGyver thing going on, yeah.
I appreciate that. You know, he's good at fixing things, good at jerry-rigging things, good at escape, shows off a little bit about it. It's great. Only he's also a thief. But MacGyver stole our hearts.
There you go. He's almost like a Robin Hood, except for that whole, like, giving to the poor thing. I mean, he's giving to the poor himself.
He's getting to that bit, right?
Right. So still in these leg irons, like you pointed out, he sleeps overnight in a barn. And when the owner finds him there in the morning, Jack convinces him that he'd actually just escaped from Bridewell prison, where he'd been held for failing to pay child support. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, totally, dude. No worries.
We've all been there.
Because, man, they put you in jail. They would put you in jail for like 2 weeks for, like missing a payment of something or whatever. Like, you got put in jail all the time back then.
It's like you get fined and thrown in jail for not having any money, and then they have you there for 2 weeks, and they release you, and then they arrest you again because you spent the last 2 weeks in jail not making any money. It's just a terrible system.
Eventually, Jack is able to bribe someone to get some blacksmith tools and remove the leg irons from his ankles. He is once again a free man.
In quotes.
In quotes.
Because he's on the lam, right? That's not really being a free man, but yeah.
No. Well, he could be. Like you said, he could like run off, go literally anywhere. Get out of London. Don't go back.
I'd be on a boat. I'd be in the New World. I really would. I'd have set sail. I'd have been in New York in 3 months and started a new life. That's what I'd have done. Picked as many pockets as I could on the way to the boat and then just started off a new life.
Yeah. But Jack doesn't do that. And after staying out of town for about 2 weeks, he goes back to London.
Well, look, Paula, I don't know if you've ever lived in London.
He calls to you?
You leave London for more than 2 weeks. Frankly, you're out of fashion by then. You need to keep up with the trends. You've got to be keeping up with what's going on. You want to be a socialite? You can't take 2 weeks off. Being a socialite is a full-time job.
Well, that actually brings up an interesting point. Maybe he was like, well, people in London like me. People in London know who I am. Maybe there's some ego boosting happening there. And he's like, I want to be there. I want to be where people think I'm important. I don't know. I don't know why he always goes back.
Maybe he thinks that his name holds enough weight for him to be able to get ahead in life in London. It's worth the risk.
Yeah. Maybe he just thinks it doesn't matter. This is where all the women I like to sleep with are. This is where my friends are.
Amen, brother.
And I can escape from anything, so whatever, who cares? So he goes back. He breaks into a pawn shop on Drury Lane and steals a fancy suit and a silver sword and some jewelry and a wig. And he has the time of his life dressed up as a dandy, getting drunk, spending time with the ladies, getting drunk, spending more time with the ladies for like a day or two until he's found super wasted and arrested again.
Well, he's been in the clink for ages, right? His tolerance to alcohol's gone a bit low. And although, let's be real, they probably gave you beer in prison those days because it was the only thing that was clean. But he's a shorter man. You know, that does have a thing with alcohol consumption. He can't help it.
So yeah, he's passed out drunk, found.
Wait, where's Bess during this? Where's his lady?
She's not there. He was apparently hanging out with some of his other. He's got like a couple.
Hell yeah, brother.
Pieces on the side. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. I've been there. I played that game.
So this time the guards, they ain't playing, Matthew.
Here's what you do: break his wrists, break his legs, shove him in a bag, and then shove him in prison.
Great. Very close. They put him in a room in the center of the prison where he could be kept under constant watch. They also loaded him down with weights. I read in one place that they loaded him down with 300 pounds of weights to keep him from being able to run off.
I'll do it.
But despite all this, Jack seems like he stays in good spirits. People want to see the famous prisoner, and the guards charge 4 shillings for people to come in and see him.
Why couldn't he just make this type of money outside of jail?
They should have made a deal, right? Like, I live in this jail, but in a nice room. You charge money. People come see me. I do tricks for them.
I escape every now and again, and then you catch me, and the price goes up.
There's
a pride thing, though, right? From the jail service here, I imagine.
Yeah. Jack puts on a show, basically, for all these visitors. He plays up to the crowd, showing them how he can slip right out of his manacles and how he can pick locks. So they show up and he's just like on command. We'll be like, yeah, I get right out of these, see?
He really could have been a performer then. He really could have done something legitimate with his life.
He's truly an escape artist. He is like a pre-Houdini type, 100%. But he also was doing well as a carpenter's apprentice before he started stealing. Like he had an honest, a legitimate life path laid out for him. He could have done. And he just, for whatever reason, went a different way for about 1.5 years. Daniel Defoe, who is the author who wrote Robinson Crusoe, wrote in The History of the Remarkable Life of John Sheppard, quote, "The concourse of people of tolerable fashion to see him was exceeding great. He was always cheerful and pleasant to a degree, as turning almost everything as was said into a jest and banter." So he just like turns everything to a joke. He's a real like classic clown. Yeah, people like him. And I think he likes making people like him.
I'll also mention Robinson Crusoe as my favorite book. It's a good one.
So some of these people of tolerable fashion even wrote to King George trying to convince him to change Jack's sentence from execution to transportation, sending him off to one of the colonies. The king did not comply, but his painter, James Thornhill, did come to the jail to paint a portrait of Jack, who posed willingly.
Oh, that makes it okay then.
Jack was taken to the gallows on November 16th. It has a kind of a sad ending. I'm not going to go into all the details that make it actually like, there's some sad details here, and I'm skipping them because I don't.
Pretty brutal end, right?
Yeah. He smuggled a knife with him, hoping to cut his ropes and escape one more time. But the guards found it on him, and that was that, basically. The city of London celebrated Jack as he rode by them through the streets. 1/3 of London's population turned out to see him. The cart stopped at the City of Oxford Tavern along the way, and Jack had a drink before they continued on. And then he gets to Tyburn, and he was hanged before the crowd. People immediately set about immortalizing Jack in works of fiction. Just 2 weeks after his death, a pantomime by John Thurman opened called Harlequin Sheppard. Jack is the inspiration for Captain Macheath in The Beggar's Opera by John Gay, which was written in 1728, which I'm familiar with because my college did a production of The Beggar's Opera my freshman year. He is the inspiration behind the Artful Dodger in Charles Dickens' book, Oliver Twist. Jack's story was still so popular in the 1840s, over 100 years later, that people started to worry it would inspire bad behavior in the youth. At this time, there was a very popular, drinking song that everyone was singing that was about Jack. And everyone was like, oh no, these kids and their music. So the Lord Chamberlain banned the licensing of any plays with Jack Sheppard in the title for 40 years. But of course, that didn't stop people from remembering Jack the Lad or celebrating him. His story is brief, and the ending of it does make me sad. But gosh, who doesn't like a lovable rascal?
Thank you so much, Paula, for doing the research on this one.
This one was fun until we get to the end, and I skipped. If you want to look into it more yourselves, there are more details about Jack's hanging that I didn't want to go into because I just think they made me sad, and I don't want to. So, but if you just a heads up that if you look more into it, there's more details about it that might make you sad.
Look, everyone loves a rogue. Paula, that's why you love me.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for tuning into this YouTube video. We appreciate you immensely. If you want to help us out, you could be a rogue all unto yourself by doing things that you know you should do, by leaving a comment, subscribing if you haven't subscribed, and most importantly, send someone this video. Share this with someone who you think might like it. We really appreciate you. We'd love to grow this YouTube channel. And if you want to listen to it, you can always find us on whatever podcatcher you listen to podcasts. This is a podcast. Don't forget.
Don't you ever forget.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We appreciate you more than we can possibly say. And until next week, thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye, everyone.